What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of A Gentle Reminder with me, Ashley Escobar. So, today we are in a new environment. My first episode was recorded in my room, which I'm still trying to knock out the little specifics of uploading a video to YouTube and that whole editing process. So, that video hasn't been posted yet, but once it is, you'll see that today's episode is taking place outside as opposed to inside in my bedroom. I was just lazy this week, didn't want to clean up my room to record this video, so I was like, you know what? We finally have been having a good weather type of week after multiple days of rain and the smoke filling up the sky. So I was like, let's take advantage of it and sit outside. So that's what we're doing. This is my porch in my lovely home. And yeah, I hope you guys like today's setup. If not, let me know. It is kind of windy, which I'm aware of, so I'm going to do my best to kind of work around that. But other than that, we're going to hop into this week's episode. Today, I'm going to be talking about finding purpose in chaos. And what I mean by that is I am coming off probably one of the roughest years I have ever had in my entire life. If I had to pinpoint any point throughout my life where I have been the most depressed, the most lost, just not myself, I would have to choose this past year, 2022 into 2023. I it hasn't been my year, but things are turning around and they're starting to be a lot better. But the reason why I wanted to talk about finding purpose in the chaos is because I feel like, sure, COVID-19 was this very big part of a lot of our generation's lives. But even 3-4 years now following the pandemic, things are still crazy. I have been doing a lot of reflecting in terms of this being my last summer before senior year and just the craziness of thinking like, everything that had happened my last senior year. So for those of you that don't know, I graduated in 2020. I was the official first COVID class to graduate from high school. So I had the pleasure of navigating all of that my senior year. I wasn't a too big fan of high school, to be quite honest. It just never really was my thing. But, did what I had to do to get to college. I started my freshman year of college in the midst of a pandemic, as I'm sure many other people my age did. So I had a very rough 2 to 3 difficult years where I just felt like my entire world was turned upside down, as I'm sure many of us have felt, because the pandemic was a very, very difficult time for myself, as I'm sure a lot of you listeners and viewers can relate. But also moving on to this big change in my life, this new journey in my life, that being starting college, starting a 4-year university in the midst of a pandemic was not very ideal, in my opinion. Looking back now, yeah, I'm grateful for the experience because I wouldn't really be living life the way that I am right now if it weren't for that pandemic and just kind of like the rocky start that I had, because now I feel like I have a greater appreciation for the relationships that I'm making in my life, a greater appreciation for my family, because due to the pandemic, I ended up deciding to live at home. So I've been living home for about 4 years now. It will be 4 years in the fall when I enter my senior year at the University of Connecticut. But yeah, it's been crazy, and I've just been really thinking about that a lot. It's been pretty heavy on my mind and on my soul lately, just the fact that we're really coming off some pretty rough years. And I think when we're coming off very difficult times in society, it's hard to find some sort of balance and get back into some sort of routine, because for the last 3 to 4 years, my life has been the pandemic, like navigating online school, social distancing, and let's be real, like within the last year or so, things have cleared up a lot, like mask mandates are over and things are a little less strict than they were, but still, it's still a difference, and there's a lot of anxiety going into my senior year just out of straight fear of something potentially happening again. But now that I'm getting kind of sidetracked, my whole point of that is saying that essentially, while the COVID pandemic was going on, and still in many parts of the world today continues to be an issue, although it's not as treacherous as it was a few years back when everything was beginning. But my mental health had worsened as a result of the pandemic. I'm not a very social person, but I still remember like 2020 and like the whole social distancing, and I was out of a job. I knew I was going to be starting college soon. You know, as an 18-year-old, I was scared. I did not know whether I was going to live to see another tomorrow, which sounds very dramatic, but when the world literally shuts down, it's kind of hard to want to plan a future and work towards a future that you don't know may or may not exist. Of course, here we are, 3 to 4 years later. Obviously, things have gotten better. We have done a lot more research. We have implemented a lot new guidelines and mandates that keep us safe and the people around us that we love safe. But still, it still was a very crazy experience. So that was kind of the setup of what made me who I am today. Another major point that I want to bring into this topic this week is I had also been going through a breakup during all this time. I feel like now, being who I am today, I'm not really big on dwelling in the past, you know. It is what it is. I felt what I felt. They did what they did. I did what I did. It was a learning experience regardless at the end of the day. There's no hate. There will always be love for that person. I will always love that person. I hope they will always love me, because regardless of the failed relationship or not, there's still the memories, and there still is a lot of love and time and effort that went into cultivating that relationship that I had with my ex. But coming into this past school year, and now that it's ended, and just kind of reflecting as I'm about to enter my last year in college and things are kind of getting really serious, where it's time to buckle down and start thinking about that future that I once didn't anticipate would ever arrive, it did come to be and has played a really big role in making me who I am today. So, I was in this relationship for nearly 5 years, and we ended up splitting sometime in the fall. I want to say around like September, October. And it was okay. I just think that it was a big, big change for me. I'm not ashamed to admit that I have an adjustment issue. It takes me a very, very long time to feel comfortable in new environments and new situations with new people. And I'll admit there was a lot of codependency with my ex. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Of course, it can be to an extent. But I personally had just came to the realization after our breakup had begun and I was kind of going through it that, like, I don't really know who I am or what my interests are, what I like to do, and what I don't like about this life outside of my relationship with my ex. Again, you will never hear anything bad come out of my mouth because I owe the life that I'm living today to my ex. I truthfully do not feel like I would be alive today if it weren't for those wonderful 4 to 5 years that I shared with him. And a lot of it has helped me become this person that I am today. But obviously, I wouldn't get here today if it weren't for me experiencing all that struggle and all the pain that I felt post breakup. I There's really no other way to explain the way that I felt other than it was like I was grieving a death of someone that was very much alive, but I just no longer had access to. And when you go from having every single day, 365 days a year, 24/7 with the person that you think that you're going to marry and it's the love of your life, and that's just stripped away and that's not the reality anymore, it's it's crazy. There's no other word to describe how the last few months of my life and my last year have been other than just feeling extremely lost. As a 20-year-old, about to be 21-year-old, I literally cannot explain the last few months of my life other than saying that I have never felt more lost and more lonely in my entire life. And I don't want this to seem like it's a bad thing. Of course, extended periods of loneliness and extended periods of feeling lost can drive a person insane. Maybe not you, but it's what happened to me. I have never felt so detached from myself. I was so down bad to a point where I didn't see another tomorrow. And I don't want this again to be like some sort of pity party or me begging for attention, because that's not the case at all. I think that our generation tends to be very desensitized to love and relationships and what it takes to really cultivate a wonderful relationship. I don't think that I would have lasted as long as I did with my ex if it weren't for the time and effort we both placed into making that relationship flourish. Of course, now we're not together anymore, but it's still a big part of who I am and a big part of my past that has led me to kind of take on this new journey in my life of just doing me and just being alone. So this is why I wanted to talk about that this week, because while I was going through all of this and just feeling so alone and so detached, not really feeling like I was living, just kind of going through the motions every single day, I decided that, the only way to take back my life is to really, really not even like convince myself, but unfortunately sometimes that is what you have to do, for lack of better words, is I had to convince myself that I wanted to live again. Because when I was going through this breakup and just everything else that was occurring as a result of that breakup and all the changes that was going on in my life, I felt like I had no purpose. Like if I couldn't be someone's partner, then what purpose did I really serve on this earth? Obviously, I know now that that is absolutely absurd, and it was a ridiculous thought to have had, but a few months ago that was the reality for me. That was the reality for a past version of myself, where I felt like, if I wasn't loving somebody else, if somebody else wasn't loving me, then what purpose did I serve on this earth? And I felt so lost in probably one of the most chaotic points of my life, but I'm here. And I think that it's important to take time to just sit back and acknowledge the fact that, sure, when you're going through it and you're really going through it and you don't think you're going to see another tomorrow, it's really hard to picture or even work towards a future. I can't even tell you, and my mom and my older sister can attest, the number of times this past year where I wanted to take my life. I didn't want to be here anymore. I was so lost, so broken, so depressed, a depression I have never felt before in my entire life. Um but quite unfortunately, you have to go through these trials in your life to get to a greater understanding of why it had to happen. I remember just feeling so much hatred for everybody in my life, finding it hard to want to get close to anybody, finding it hard to even want to socialize with anybody. It quite honestly came to a point throughout this time and throughout this experience where I had to make a decision. I had to decide if I was really going to let those dark thoughts win, or if I was going to actually give living another shot. And what I mean by living, it isn't just deciding that, you're going to wake up in the morning and brush your teeth and do that. It's deciding to do that even on the days where you don't want to. I can't even explain that. Like this past week, into this current week, I just haven't really been in the best of moods. It's important to be self-aware of when you're kind of heading down a dark, steep slope. Wow, that was a tongue twister. Say that 3 times. But, the fact that I'm self-aware of it makes me then know how to approach it and how to really cope with what I'm feeling when I'm going through times like this. But, it's about showing up even on the days that you don't want to show up. My best example that I could give is with the gym. I love working out, but I would be a liar and a fibber if I said that I go to the gym every day and I want to be there every day, because I know damn well that there are some days I wake up and I just don't want to do it. And don't get me wrong, this is not saying that like if you work out for out of the 7 days a week. Like, I'm not saying that that's bad, that you're not doing enough, because, we all vary. But I'm just saying that, like, sometimes you have to fight the laziness and the desire to do absolutely nothing and cave into your depression and wake up and do all the things you don't want to do. It's about that consistency. It's about really trying, and it's about forcing yourself to do the things you don't want to do, because at least in the end, I know if I get up and I go work out, even if that's not what I want to be doing that day, I'm going to end up feeling better and I'll feel great. And it's rewarding to my body that I'm keeping myself healthy and doing something for myself rather than sulking and being depressed all day. Again, that's not to say that you can't feel those feelings. We all have those days where we just need to lay in bed all day and cry, and we just need to feel our feelings, but we also can't let it consume us to the point where that's an everyday type of thing. And of course, like I always say, it's going to vary person to person, and it's about knowing your limitations and knowing when, you can handle something on your own, but also being self-aware enough to know when things are getting out of hand and maybe you do need extra support. And it's very imperative as an adult, or as a young adult, to know when it's time to reach out and ask for support, because it's very stigmatized asking for help and asking for support nowadays in our society. But just imagine how many lives you could save by just giving one person the opportunity to just vent, or just, get what they're feeling and dealing with off of their chest. But yeah, so essentially, finding purpose in the chaos is of great importance to me, because as someone that finds themselves in a lot of just shitty situations, and just I happen to feel like I'm always the punching bag, and something will go great for a few days, for a few weeks, a few months, and it's just right back to struggling and like battling myself essentially. So it's about, again, the biggest things, being self-aware of knowing how you kind of deal with the stress and how you kind of deal with and navigate the scary situations that may arise in your life, but knowing that it's not the end. I think the biggest advice I would ever give to the younger version of myself, or even someone that's watching right now and is struggling a lot, I know it's cliche, and I know it gets frustrating to hear from literally every other person you talk to when you're going through something, but it does get better. And it's so hard to put yourself in that mindset when you're going through it and you're in the bulk of it. But believe me that it gets better, and there will always be a greener side on the other end of this, whatever you may be experiencing. But always make sure to reach out when you need help. Always make sure to know that even though it may feel like it's the end of the world, it's not. And at the end of the day, you're going to learn a very, very important lesson from that experience. If I could tell you, I probably have learned the most that I feel like I will ever be capable of learning in this life, within this last year of my life. This breakup, almost being done with school, getting ready, like to apply to PA schools, setting up myself for the future. This has been one crazy journey that I've been enduring lately. But I feel prepared for it, even though I'm scared and I'm anxious. And I really don't think I would feel as prepared and ready. Although nervous, it's an excited type of nervous to go on to this next stage of getting ready to graduate and setting up my future life off strong. I don't think that it would be possible without everything that I've gone through. I think that I'm really starting to fall back in love with myself and with the life that I'm cultivating right now. And I'm very proud of myself for how far I've come. It's important to give yourself that credit, because at the end of the day, sure, I always had the support of my sisters and my parents and my family, but it was really important that at the end of the day, I myself wanted to get better. I myself wanted to pick myself up out of the trench that I was in and want to live a better life and want to make changes and want to accept and let go and move on. And I think once you are able to kind of shift your mindset and get to that point in whatever you may be experiencing, it makes coping with it a lot easier. That's not to say that, you know, you're never going to feel those feelings again. What I mean by that, a great example is this breakup. It's been months, 6 or 7 months, but that's not to say that there aren't still days where I wake up and I'm fully immersed in those emotions all over again. It's about just navigating the days as they come. Not every day is going to be a good day. Some days you're going to wake up and you're going to feel like you already failed. Trust me, I believe that. The amount of times I've woken up and I've been like, there's no point in getting up today because I didn't get enough sleep. I already feel like I'm behind on today's schedule, or this, or that, or this, or that. It's so easy to just make that switch to turn the smallest thing in your day, making it into this huge negative problem. It's so easy to be a pessimist. I know because I am one. It's something that I struggle with all the time. And I get told it all the time. Everyone's like, when things are good in your life, they're really good. But when they're bad, suddenly everything else is bad. One bad thing happens in your life and suddenly your whole life is appeared to be terrible and so shitty. And I'm like, yeah, I know. But it's about, again, being self-aware that you do that, and in that moment trying to take a step back and adjust that mindset. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to our second episode of A Gentle Reminder here with me, Ashley Escobar. I'm kind of liking this outdoor setup, other than the fact that it is pounding heat on me right now, but I need to work on my tan anyway, so yeah. There's a few exciting things in store. I really want to try and get an episode in with my younger sister, Valerie Escobar, because it's graduation week. And for those of you that don't know, she's my younger sister who I love dearly. I swear to God, it's like she's my child. I feel like a mom. If you're an older sibling and you can relate to that with your younger siblings, like, I feel you, but I feel like I raised her, I watched her grow into this beautiful young woman, and Saturday we're going to be celebrating a great accomplishment in her life. It's finally the last one of us all to graduate and move on to college, and I just haven't been more excited to be able to play a part in this journey of her life because I've lived through it, and it's probably been one of the most scariest but rewarding experiences of my entire life. So I want to have an episode with Val so we could talk about how she's feeling about officially finishing high school and going into college. And I think that'll be a really cool series for like people to watch. But anyways, quick shout out to my smarty pants of a sister, Val, because for those of you that don't know, she got into Cornell University and she is the first in the family to get into an Ivy League, and she'll be attending her sophomore year. After her freshman year, she'll be at UMass, where she will be attending at UMass Amherst. So Valerie, if you're watching this or listening to this, I love you so much and I am so proud of you. It's people like Valerie, my friends and other families and relatives that really push me to want to be a better person. And I give them a lot of credit because they've seen me at my worst and they've seen me at my best, and they continuously show up and support me. And it's important to have those people and cultivate those relationships in your life as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode/video. I'm really, really happy to be back into the swing of thing and recording videos again and posting the podcast. I'm loving it. It has been stressful, but it's one of those things where, like, if you really want it, you have to work for it. So this is me. I'm just proud to be showing up and like finally putting in the work to achieve something that I have always wanted to do, and I'm super excited to be continuing. So yeah, that's it for this week's episode. Make sure you guys listen, follow for updates on Instagram, or subscribe to my YouTube channel where you could watch and listen to these visually for my visual learners, because I'm right there with you. Sometimes you just need something to go with the audio. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you guys have a great week, and I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Please feel free to leave some comments or, reach out to me and give me some feedback, because we can only go up from here. And yeah, so thank you guys again so much for tuning in. I hope you have a great rest of your week. Bye.